Hello, everybody, and welcome to the WrestleWatch podcast. I'm Ryan.
And I am Doug. How's
Uh,
everyone doing today?
I'm doing well, at least. How are you doing, Doug?
I'm doing very good. Uh, just came back from All Out.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was very good.
you.
And we'll talk about that as well as other things. But I think first, I just want to we'll just go over, the podcast for everyone. This is the WrestleWatch podcast. We're the only weekly podcast where we discuss free agency, contract negotiations, and the overall landscape of talent and management dynamics in the world of professional wrestling. You can follow us on the WrestleWatch YouTube channel, where we stream the show live every week, or you can find us on your podcast catcher of choice. You can follow us on X, where we post updates, including our meticulously curated WrestleWatch tier list, and on Substack for long form articles, where we analyze the likelihood of talent leaving, joining, and of course, jumping between various wrestling promotions, with a special focus on WWE, AEW, New Japan, and Stardom.
Mm. So, let's get into. I guess let's just briefly chat about how was your time at All Out.
It was very good. Notably, there wasn't any debuts or, big jumps like that to discuss.
Yeah,
Other than Daniel Garcia has obviously caused a little bit of discussion
yeah,
with the way that went, and he's someone that has, you know, has some people speculating about like where he's gonna go and what's going on with him. But overall, I thought the show was very good. The things that I would say were the highlights, were the main event, even though they were extreme. It was extremely controversial, obviously, but I thought it was excellent. Um,
was it?
Pack versus.
Do you think that it was actually controversial, or people were just acting like it's controversial?
I think there's some. Um, I think it's mostly just performative. I don't think there was. I think maybe there was some pearl clutching, but I don't think it was any. I think it was mostly just people who were wanting to be mad.
And then you were
That's
about to
my
talk about Pac and Osprey there.
Pack. Yeah, Pack and Osprey was excellent as well. It's just overall top great show. I think it's 2 years in a row now where I could say All Out was better than All In.
Well, that's spicy. I think that could be
Yeah,
one of the hot takes for the week.
yeah.
Um, I think that and I gotta say it very, and you might not like it. Now that it's a B pay-per-view, it's really opened the door for it to do whatever it wants to do as a pay-per-view. It doesn't have to be the be all end all quarterly pay-per-view.
No, and I think I felt last year really felt almost like a New Year dash
Yeah.
where it was just like a reset. This year didn't necessarily feel that way because it really did feel like you had some culmination, some stories being like obviously Hangman Swerve is, that's not a reset. That was a blow off for sure. And but in the same way you had the Bullet Club, not Bullet Club, the Blackpool Combat Club explodes angle. That felt
Yes.
very that felt very New Japan Dash or New Year
Yeah.
Dash.
Yeah. That was so that was one of the few matches that I got to watch most of. I've been extremely busy. This is the first week of touring for the artists I'm out on the road with, and this is the first day off after 4 days in a row for me. Um, and I was trying to watch the pay per view while working, and that does not work usually in a concert environment. So I did see the turn, but I did not see the match earlier, Bucks versus BCC, or the former BC. It's very loose right now, but I'm presuming they'll, make it more obvious on Wednesday. I've seen some speculation from people believing that Brian will wrap up because there's a deep rumor, as we say in the biz, that he'll be wrapping up the full career or the championship run full time part of things at Wrestle Dream, allegedly against John Moxley. That's the deep rumor. Um, which I mean, last night kind of pointed at, or a Saturday night kind of pointed in that direction. Although personally, if I were in the zoo, I would say it'd probably be better to have someone go over that could use the win over Brian rather than somebody that's already a three-time world champion, the ace, as some people say, and also somebody that doesn't really. Uh, he's somebody that can afford a loss at any time. In John Moxley, that's my personal take on all of that.
Yeah, I also will, but I will say this. I think it's time we go back to a heel champion, like a real heel champion, because we
Yeah,
haven't really had one of those in a while. And I think what they can do with John Moxley is interesting because I would argue that after that angle, first of all, I think that angle went, perfectly. I think they could do a lot with that, and I think we'll see how hot it stays. But I mean, I think he's going to have molten heat, going forward. So I think
yeah.
I want to see what this group is going to be. But I think I am intrigued, and I would not be opposed to another Moxley title reign if
Yeah,
that's the direction.
yeah, and it seems that it's they've given something nice for Pac to be doing, even though it looks like 2 out of 3 of the trios champions are on one team now.
Yeah, and then I don't know if before we get into everything we're going to be discussing today, I don't know if we want to talk about Daniel Garcia because he's not. I don't think he's someone we were thinking of talking about today. Correct?
We weren't thinking about talking about him today because last week, for some reason, we took him off the tier list, even though it was that he was offered a big money contract by AEW and had not signed it, as far as we
Yes.
were aware. Of course, at the match today, excuse me, the match on Saturday, Daniel Garcia loses in a messy finish, I suppose is one way of putting it. Low blow. It's not a clean finish at all. And then
And for the
he got his comeuppance after the
yes,
match, which is still keeping like he won that. So like losing the match by a low blow and then getting to do what he did, that still comes out as a win to me, even if on paper it's not a win in the record books. So that's why I'm not really believing some of these. I feel like they're deep rumors for some of the people that are saying it. I know that there's some better sources that are saying, yeah, he hasn't actually signed, but there's some folks out there, I think in the Wrestle Purist space, that were saying that allegedly Garcia was originally planned to win the match, and then due to not having signed the new contract yet, they decided to switch it at the last minute to having MJF win, and then doing the little angle after the match to keep Garcia, nicely toasty still after the losing a match. So, what did you want to say about all of that?
I just, I generally kind of agree. I think what happened here is maybe Daniel Garcia uh, had a WWE offer,
Mm-hmm.
even if it was, and AEW came back with this big one, this rumored alleged big one that apparently upset people in WWE. And now, because of that, Garcia is kind of in this weird situation where he has a big money offer from AEW, but maybe in his mind, he was already going to be leaving. And now he's just in kind of this limbo of not sure what he's going to do. Which, if that's the case, I that would make sense to me why AEW feels confident they're going to retain him because it sounds like you know WWE isn't necessarily going to counter the offer, but at the same time, it seems like Garcia, for whatever reason, isn't signing it or didn't sign it yet. So unless he's trying to get more money. But if WWE isn't going to be offering any additional money, I'm not exactly sure what the leverage play is there because you know WWE stop bidding if that's my take on it. Um, so I said this earlier, but I'll just say it again. I think the worst outcome in this is that Daniel Garcia takes less money to go to WWE. Like I think that's bad for Daniel Garcia. I think it's a bad look for him. I think it's bad for labor. I think it's bad for the industry. It's good for the companies. It's good for the management, but you know, we are pro labor here, and I think that that would be bad for them.
Yeah, so first off, I think that there might be a little bit of a plot hole with the theory that Garcia was intending to leave AEW, because I still think that you wouldn't fly him to London for all of those things and then put him in this match. You would just like let him act injured and say that that was the end of it. So like I don't, that's why I'm not buying what's being thrown out there as heavily.
I could understand that being a a big move to kind of fly him out for this angle. At the same time, this is the company that pays, 6 figures to play Final Countdown. So maybe it's not that big of a stretch
Yeah,
that
but
they
like
would do that.
that's the final countdown. That's your big star. That's your main event. Uh, you're world champion now and everything. Also, at the biggest show in the world. For them. Whereas like, I mean, yeah, but I don't know. It feels like it's an investment, also not just in money, but in time and effort. To reinsert Daniel Garcia into the storylines and into your company structure if he's just gonna leave. That feels either that feels silly on AEW's part, or it feels deceptive maybe on Daniel Garcia's part that he was able to do that. um,
Yeah, and you know what the thing is, I felt that we should probably at least mention it because it did just happen this weekend,
yeah,
and a lot of people are talking about it, and there's a lot of obviously speculation going out with Ibu kind of mentioning this. So based off of that, I just wanted to touch on it, but I think maybe we could talk a little bit more about it next week. And let's be honest, I'm sure we're going to be voting on him, and
yeah.
I'm sure we're going to be discussing him in terms of the tier list. For the record, you know, with all due respect to our fine committee members, always respect them. I just want to go ahead and do a little victory lap that I believe we both wanted to keep him on the tier list.
Yes, we did. Yeah, we
Yes.
both said that it's not over yet. Like I was sure that it's going to go in the direction that he's going to resign because of flying out to London, but like I was like, no, it's not. It hasn't signed yet. Like we can't just throw him off yet. And that's been some of my worry about something that we changed on the tier list. Actually, if we want to jump into it, so this was the tier list for people that are tuning in on podcasts. We're flashing up right now last week's tier list. So if you go on to either our Twitter account or onto our Substack, you can find the image so you can follow along with us of what the tier list looked like last week. Now, that was as of the end of the podcast. We did one more change. Now, I remember last week we went over a bit about, not recognizing TNA anymore and trying to streamline a little bit of what our criteria were for the tier list and fine-tuning it to being three major promotions now, just AEW, Bushiroad, which is New Japan, and Stardom and WWE. So that caused a lot of changes to the tier list last week. But then we went back at it, went back to the workshop and said, you know what, there's one more change we want to do to the tier list structurally this time. And that's trying to make it a little bit more clear about what each tier means. Now, of course, we do have definitions of the tiers that you can find on our websites and everything of that sort. And on the image itself, it does have a description for each letter tier grade. So S tier meant imminent debut, A tier was likely jump, and so on down the line. But we wanted to make it a little bit more clear for people so that it also just to get rid of the stain, I suppose, of being like, this is an F tier person. Like, maybe we can gussy that up a little bit, give it a nice new coat of paint. So now on the screen for the people, we have our updated style, our updated structure of the tier list. We've switched from doing letter grades into doing just kind of like political commentary does ratings for states, for races. We're going with that kind of same language for the tier list. At the middle we have toss up, and then going from the middle it's lean and lean jump or lean stay, likely jump, likely stay, safe jump, safe stay. So the language that we're going with now is safe, likely, lean, toss up, and then going down from there, the same for stay, lean, likely, and safe stay. So that what's on the screen right now for people that are watching the stream. This is what last week's tier list looks like by these new standards. You'll notice that this likely stay category is now being inserted in between what formerly was the D and F tier. We just wanted a little bit more granularity on the stay side, because up until now we had 3 tiers that were above toss-up or 50-50 C tier, and then we only had 2 tiers below. So this is creating essentially the A tier of the stay side of things. And just to also clarify a little bit more, when we're talking jump, of course, we're saying somebody leaving what they're doing right now and signing with a major promotion of the 3 that we're talking about: AEW, Bushiroad, WWE. So they're at if there's somebody that's at WWE, it would be them jumping to AEW or Bushiroad. If there's somebody at TNA, it's them jumping to any of those 3 promotions that we just talked to about. If it's somebody that's just a full-on independent star or international star, it means jumping to one of those 3 promotions. Stay then means staying where you are and what you're doing. So if you're in AEW, stay means staying in AEW. Makes sense. If you are in TNA, stay means staying in TNA or not going to a major promotion. And then also for independent wrestlers, it means not going to a major promotion. You're staying independent. So just wanted to clear that up for people before we get into things about where we're looking at for the tier list this week.
And I think just as we're going through it, especially for the people who are on audio, I think, when we say D, B, C, a lot of those letters, they can kind of sound the same and it's easy to mishear. So I think just saying, oh, I think this person is a safe jump, or I think this person is, leaning stay. I think those are just, it's a little bit more clear and easy to understand. And especially for people who aren't familiar with the podcast, aren't familiar with our tier charts, just taking a quick glance at it as a new person, it's a lot easier to follow.
Yeah. So, who are we going to start with this week? I think we might as well start with AEW things, just to get us off the blocks here.
Yes.
How about we start with AEW media rights? Right now, as it was last week, we had them as leaning safely at staying with Warner Brothers Discovery for their media rights. This past week, there was a little bit of news during the press conferences before and after All Out. Doug, are you familiar with all those things?
Yes. There's a lot, even within the last couple hours, a lot of people are speculating that Fox is in the mix now.
Yes.
And we'll see where this goes, but I think we need to clarify, what we were voting here with AEW media rights, it was whether or not AEW would be leaving Warner Brothers Discovery.
Yeah.
That was how we worded it. So granted, when we put this together, it wasn't necessarily this idea that, they'd be splitting up media rights, which appears they could be doing, but the idea that they would leave Warner Brothers Discovery. Over the weekend, at the end of Collision, Tony Khan.
And this is also after we voted, just for clarification also.
Yeah, sure. So, Tony Khan had mentioned that, they're going to be, he feels very confident Dynamite will be staying on TBS and TNT, and AEW will be staying on TBS, TNT. He did say that, but even before that, we were feeling more and more close. Tony Khan kept hinting that we're getting down to the 1 yard line. We're almost in the end zone. A lot of speculation that the WBD AEW deal was with the lawyer. They've said it was with the lawyers at this point. It felt like it was a pretty done deal. And even at this point, it feels pretty close. At the media presser, he said he's 90% sure that these things will be wrapped up within the next month. So we had it lean stay. I voted safe stay. We're at safe. It's safe to say, in my opinion, that AEW and Warner Brothers Discovery are going to come to some type of agreement within for the next term.
So I was going with likely stay. The reason why I was going with that, and this was even before things that came out further to us this weekend about the possibility of Fox having a play in things. I think this was Andrew Zarian. He was doing his stream, which I believe is on Fightful now, and he went and muted his mic to say something to his co-host, and somebody lip-read and said, "It looked like you were talking about Mox. What about Mox has to do with media rights?" And he replied saying, "Oh, I didn't say Mox," which then led people to believe he said Fox. So Fox obviously is I don't know if we could say losing the rights to SmackDown. They chose not to keep SmackDown on their program blocks there. So there is a possibility, and this was something that has been mentioned for a while. It was an outside chance of Fox possibly making a play at AEW because the rights would be far less expensive than they would be for just SmackDown even. As we saw with how the negotiations went with USA Network, the predicted amount that all of AEW's rights would be is less than SmackDown. So if they do stay with Warner Brothers in some regard and split off a program, maybe Collision, or create a new program, which some people are speculating what this AEW Shockwave copywriting is all about. Some people thinking that it might be just talking smack for AEW. Some people thinking, well, what happens after a Collision, Shockwave, or what happens after Dynamite explodes, a Shockwave. So some people also thinking that maybe there'll be, like if Rampage becomes a third hour to Collision or to Dynamite, that Shockwave might be the third hour to the other show. Or it could be a clip show. Nobody knows what it is, or even if they're going to use this copyright, because we still have not seen Wrestle Bowl happen. But it's caused some speculation because of that rumor that's now circulating about Fox possibly having a hand in things. So even before all the Fox stuff came up, I was feeling it was more of a likely that they're going to be staying with Warner Brothers Discovery, just because it is with the lawyers. However, I kind of still think that it hasn't been signed yet, so I wouldn't put it as a safe thing personally. But how do we think that the voters on our committee went with this, Doug?
I feel like they probably went. I'm gonna say they went safe stay as well.
Okay, so we can reveal they did go safe stay.
Okay.
So they'll be joining a bunch of things, the media rights, down at the bottom of our tier list. Something that folks are thinking is very likely to be happening. Or safely happening, I suppose, rather than saying likely. Any other thoughts about AW media rights there, Doug?
I think that's it. Other than I'm sure we'll have more info probably within the next week. I feel like something like this isn't gonna be under wraps for very long.
Yeah, I think both ways of looking at it, that if things are with lawyers and everything like that, and Tony Khan is being a lot more bold at the press conferences about talking about the negotiations now and some of the bullet points that they're trying to get worked out, it sounds like possibly that Max will be a part of this deal if it does go through. But also now with this new Fox possibility that Zarian might have accidentally put out into the ether. I'm sure that other people that have been following everything related to the media rights will be looking into the possibility of Fox now having a hand in it, or maybe it was FX, which is also something that people have been talking about. So yeah, we will see what happens.
Which, for the record, not part of Fox.
Not part of Fox, no, part of Disney, who previously was trying to get the Raw rights. So yes. They've been interested in wrestling. I'm just happy that none of those things are Amazon. So next up,
knock on wood.
Knock on wood. Next up, we're going to talk about Alex Windsor for a hot second here. I think it's more that there just hasn't been anything hot in the news about Alex Windsor since she made some appearances in AEW. We previously had her as a lean jump from Rev Pro. Doug, did you have any more thoughts before we talk about where we think that she'll end up on the tier list?
No, I have nothing really to add. I think same thoughts. When I voted, I came up with the same kind of idea. Just like, well, there hasn't been a whole lot going on. So I'll just say where I voted. I voted toss up.
Same. Yeah, I just think that it's now just a toss up of what will happen with her. And it just so happens that that's how our committee also agrees, that we just move her down one tier of confidence at this moment.
All right. That was a quick one.
Yeah, that was a quick one. So that's essentially the AEW part of the podcast wrapped up, and now we have somebody that's at WWE currently. It's Sami Zayn. We're going to talk about him for a quick minute here. He previously is in the safe stay at WWE tier. His contract is due up either in December or January. We know that his good buddy and somebody that he signed the contract at the same time back in 2021, Kevin Owens. It came out that his contract is set to expire specifically on January 31st, which I think you might have some thoughts on that when we get once I get through this quick recap about Sami Zayn. Yeah, I think that is the quick recap about Sami Zayn. There's not really much more news about him. It's just that now that we have a new tier right above Safe Stay, I think some people are thinking, well, there's a little bit more juice here about Sammy leaving WWE than some of the folks that we have in the Safe Stay tier. Some people think that it might be more likely that he stays rather than just safely that he stays. So, Doug, what are your thoughts about Sammy? And think it might be good for you to throw in your thoughts about Kevin Owens in here too.
Yeah, we could do them both. So I think that Sami Zayn and for that matter, Kevin Owens as well are not necessarily as sure things as we have thought in the past. I think that Kevin Owens, as I said before, I've heard that his contract is up January 31st.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, that was quite a while ago that I was told that, and things could change. I don't remember if he had any injuries, and who knows how those things actually work out. But either way, he's got a couple months unless something changes. Um, Having said that, I think that Kevin Owens is a little bit more likely to stay than I think Sami Zayn is.
Mm-hmm.
So Sami Zayn, I put him at actually a lean stay. I'm not saying likely. I'm not saying safe. He's lean. So he's one below toss up. Kevin Owens, I would call a toss up at this time.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I said that wrong. So I think Kevin Owens is a little bit more likely to leave than Sami Zayn. Sorry if that confused people. So Kevin Owens, I say is a toss up. Sami Zayn, I think is a lean stay.
Yeah. So I would say I'm one step a little bit more conservative than you are. So I was feeling both of them as likely staying at WWE. I think that over this year we've seen a lot of people that we thought might either at least just test the free agency waters, not really do so. Now, of course, even when they're under contract, I think that when you're in this time frame of like 3 months out from your contract expiring, I'd say it's not weird to start talking, to whoever you could get a new contract from. That's not odd at all. But I think that what we've seen this year is a bunch of people that we thought would, test out free agency a little bit more than they did, not at all. And they just safely re-signed with WWE. So that's what's giving me a little pause of putting it as a lean option regarding Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens for that matter. So that's where I'm falling.
I will say this though, and I understand that people probably look at me saying toss up for Kevin Owens and think pretty that's pretty high just based off of what we know. I mean, there's not a like toss up is, it's a 50-50. But the reason why I'm saying that, and it's because this recent news that we saw that AEW threw these big money offers at Swerve and Daniel Garcia,
Mm-hmm.
and to the point that someone in WWE a little higher up was a little taken aback by that.
Yeah.
I think that both Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens are people at this stage in their career might like a limited schedule, might like something without a position without house shows, might like something with a little more pay with a little less work, which granted they could get with WWE and people are getting that now, but they could also get that from AEW and maybe they would get more.
Yeah.
get a bigger offer. So especially if these TV deals wrap up, um, I know it's not outside the realm of possibility that something like that happens. So for right now, I'm willing to go a little bit more, a little more risky with Kevin Owens. We'll
Uh-huh.
see how I go in the coming weeks, but that's where I'll have him.
Yeah, and then I think that we did actually do a vote on Kevin this week, just to peel back the curtain. Nothing happened with where he was. He still is a lean stay. Now for Sammy, um, I'm saying just put him up to likely. Where were you saying toss up lean likely?
I thought he was a lean stay.
Okay. Well, let's see what the committee says. They're saying we're just going to put him up one tier into likely stay. So a little bit more conservative than you, Doug, about Sami Zayn at this moment.
That's fair. I will take that. Likely stay is also good.
Yeah. Next up, we're getting into, I guess, the TNA portion of the podcast. So, hey, even if we're not saying that TNA is somewhere that's major enough at the moment, they're still topical. So
They
first,
are.
first up, we're going to talk about Giselle Shaw. Um, she has gotten her release from TNA. Now, interestingly enough, of course, I believe, Doug, correct me if I'm wrong. She has a little bit of a relationship with a certain somebody that's starting up a new promotion.
Yeah, so Giselle Shaw has been in a relationship with Scott D'Amore for a while, who's the former TNA booker, and he currently is now running Maple Leaf Pro out of, surprise, surprise, Canada.
Friendship is
Uh,
magic, bro. Yeah.
yes. So she had left TNA, and she's an interesting one to discuss because if we're talking about her as just being a independent wrestler now, a jump for her would be to WWE, AEW, or Stardom. Now, let's start off right off the bat. Now, this isn't, obviously the best way to go about this, but let's just say it what it is. Right now, WWE has not shown any inclination that they are willing to sign trans women.
Correct. Yeah.
And Giselle Shaw is a trans woman. AEW has a trans woman on the roster. She's actually a former champion. So right off the bat, there's one that's off the books right now in terms of what, as far as I could tell, unless I see a change in that. I mean, we're in 2024 and they have not, brought in any trans talent at this point. So,
Yeah.
um, they could, they'd be good if they did, but they have not.
Yeah.
So it's hard to ignore that. And then there's Stardom, which at this time I don't necessarily know one way or other how they would approach that. So I'm just gonna kind of let that one. I'll just be generous and assume that that wouldn't be a problem. I'll be generous for now. So even with that generosity, she's got 2 out of 3 promotions that she could go to. There hasn't been any indication that AEW is particularly interested in Giselle Shaw at this time, nor Stardom.
Yeah.
And if she's going to be doing stuff with Maple Leaf Pro, and that's sort of where Scott D'Amore is doing, it makes sense that she might just stay as an independent for a while. So, as an independent talent, I think she is likely to stay an independent talent for the time being. So, I said likely stay.
So due to all of the things that you just said, and also just I hadn't thought about her as being a prominent possible free agent. So I hadn't really given much thought to the possibility of where she would end up to begin with. Um, I was thinking to just not have her on the tier list because I'm not confident enough to even say that there's a possibility of her jumping, and that's kind of my looking at it like safe state. Yeah, it means it's safe to say that this person is going to stay where they are. However, I think that there is still a hurdle to get onto the tier list to begin with, because if we're just going to say everybody that's safely staying where they're at, then we're going to have infinite amounts of people on the tier
So
list.
you think she's above the Brian Pillman Jr. or below the Brian Pillman Jr. line?
I think at the moment, yes, and I think that also just because there is no, I don't think that there's enough. I guess the best way of putting it is intrigue about her ending up in, essentially it's just AEW is the way that I'm looking at it. Um,
Yeah,
so because of that, I just wouldn't even include her on the tier list. Which
I
it's not a reflection of her or anything like that. It's just a reflection of the situation that we're looking at as you laid it out, and also that I think My Little Pony, Maple Leaf Pro, I think that it seems that they're creating. It looks like they're in they're trying to create something there. It feels like with especially some of the production talent that they're bringing in. That it could be some folks that just want an occasional production job, or it could be that maybe Scott's trying to construct something out of nothing that maybe in Canada could get onto TV because of how Canadian culture grants work. So I think that it's possible that that could just be where she ends up. And because of that, I would say that it's uh, I just wouldn't add her to the tier list.
here's why I'm going to defend having her where I have her.
Hmm.
Um, two things. First of all, I think one of the things that, and we haven't really talked about this, but I think it's fair to say that when a talent gets released or a talent leaves a promotion, it does create kind of like a jump of buzz, of possibility that they may go someplace else. And then every week that goes by, that kind of diminishes a bit
Yeah.
in general. We'd say that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so I think, and I think Giselle Shaw is actually a really, really strong talent. I think she's a star. And for those reasons alone, I could absolutely see an ROH deal being thrown at her at least.
Uh-huh.
And so at least early on. So I think if nothing happens within like the next couple weeks, I'd probably start leaning towards removing her from the tier list. But I think while it's fresh, I'm okay having her on there for right now.
Okay.
So that was my argument.
Well, it looks like the committee is wanting to split the difference between us, and they would like to put her on the tier list, but only put her down in our lowest tier of certainty of something happening, which is having saying that she will be safely staying as an independent talent.
Okay. I think that that's a perfectly reasonable spot for her. Safe stays independent. Yep.
And continuing on with the knockouts division, how about we talk about Jordan Grace for a quick moment here? This is a little bit more, I suppose, a recalibration of how we're thinking about Jordan Grace because, as was I believe it was you, Doug, that was pointing out why you were wanting to move her from where she was previously, which was leaning stay at TNA. Do you want to take this one then, Doug?
Yeah, I would like to take this one because I think that I think it's been a little while since we really looked at Jordan Grace and really analyzed like where she's at, especially in the wake of not just obviously being in the Royal Rumble, but she's been kind of a fixture with the TNA NXT crossover, and now they had obviously had this little feud thing with Wendy Chu,
Mm-hmm.
so she's clearly working directly with WWE on a lot of storylines, and I think that they want her. I really do believe that WWE is eventually going to make an offer for her. And on top of that, we already that she renegotiated her TNA contract where it's going to expire in January. It feels like it's a jump to me. Seems like it's going to be more likely than not. The only thing that I would say would keep me from saying that is that she's been someone who's always kind of liked her freedom.
Yes.
Um, she's always, she's only worked, a couple days a week because you would just do the TNA tapings and that was it.
Yeah, and
And
she
then,
also has some independent pursuits.
yeah, she obviously does a lot of the weightlifting stuff. She's incredibly profitable on Patreon and OnlyFans. So she's someone who is independently a millionaire. She doesn't need WWE. So, but if it does, and I don't necessarily know how she feels about TNA under the new regime. That's a whole other thing entirely. So, but based off of that alone, I still think I still am leaning towards. I'm going to say lean jumped for her because I think
Uh-huh.
her going to WWE at this point is more likely, even if it's slightly more likely than her staying in TNA.
Yeah, and I think something that was re-pointed out to me, because I was somebody that was again a little bit more conservative about the likelihood of her jumping imminently is another way of putting it too. Talking about like the time frame, because as we were just talking about with Giselle Shaw and how sometimes over time the 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 hotness of the possibility of them going somewhere kind of dissipates a little bit. Um, I kind of forgot, of course, something that you brought up, which is, of course, she renegotiated her TNA contract to get out of it early, and it's expiring in January, which is only, 3.5 months away by this point. So at some point in the next 4 months, she could just be gone from TNA forever.
Yeah.
And that
And
that
that's kind.
yeah, that for me brings it up from a lean to a toss up at this point for me.
And that'd be fair too. That'd be fair.
So how do we think that the committee went for this one?
I'm gonna say they agreed with me and went lean jump.
Wow, they did. They
Look at that.
they love you this week, Doug.
Sometimes they don't, but they did this week.
Yeah. I think we got one more TNA name to think about, and this is somebody new that kind of buttresses up with both of what we were just talking about there. So Josh Alexander has not done any of this NXT crossover work at all. He's one of the, I would say, he's probably the biggest person on their roster who has not had any involvement with the crossover work. That's the first bullet point here that's making people thunk a little about if Josh Alexander might be on his way out. Second bullet point, of course, is that earlier this year he had his option picked up by TNA against his wishes. And third is that he will be on the MLP, the Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling show. Their first two shows are coming up here for Scott D'Amore's new promotion. Interesting note, of course, is that there are only two TNA current talent that are going to be performing on that card at the current moment, at least. That appears to be Josh Alexander and Speedball Mike Bailey. Mike Bailey, of course, is in our toss-up tier because his contract is also coming up soon enough. They will be competing against a signed AEW talent in Konosuke Takeshita on that card, and there will be other signed AEW talents such as Athena also on that card. So it seems that Scott's getting a little bit of cooperation from AEW in booking his program there. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's any kind of real alliance or anything like that, but it seems that AEW is, chill with Scott D'Amore and working with him and letting their talent work these shows, especially with talent from TNA on the card as well. So given all of those things, that's just setting the table for us here on Josh Alexander, the situation. What are you thinking about Josh Alexander, Doug?
So Josh Alexander, first of all, personally, he's someone that I always have struggled with as a fan because he's someone that every single time I see him, I'm so impressed, and he always has great matches, but he just doesn't jump off for me. He doesn't have it. He's just like a charisma vacuum for me personally. I have trouble really attaching to him. But then once again, every time I see him, he's great. So he's a tricky talent in that regard. Now, in terms of where he's at, I do think that he's probably out of TNA.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's an indie stalwart. He has been for the longest time. I could see him just keep it, going back to the indies, especially with the MLP starting up with Scott D'Amore.
Mm-hmm.
He's someone who is based in Canada, so that also makes a lot of sense as well. He had visa issues for a while, struggling to get in the country, so I wouldn't be surprised there. As far as him going to AEW or something like that, I could see it. Um, but regardless, that's neither here nor there because I think the bottom line is he leaving TNA? I would say probably. So I actually have him at a likely jump.
Yeah, so this is the I guess the three questions that we have here is first off, is he notable enough to be on the tier list? I think we both can safely say yes. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
yeah, he's one of the biggest names that's I would say not in the one of the big promotions right now in the wrestling world, and he's been for a while for that matter. So second question, of course, is he going to leave where he's at right now? And I think the answer to that is almost certainly yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
I would
it is likely
I
that
would
he
say
will leave.
likely, yes. To use the parlance that we have for the podcast, I'd say it's likely that he leaves CNA. Now, the question then is it, what the likelihood is it that he signs with specifically the three promotions that we look at? And I would say that it's a toss up, because I think that, as you were just saying, that I think there's a distinct possibility that he just wants to do indie dates for a while. I think that he seems to like doing those, and I think that he would have a greater freedom to go and take bookings that might have conflicted with TNA's TV schedule, or to do maybe something like a G1 or something like that in Japan. Some kind of longer residency where he's a freelance talent in Japan at any of the promotions there. I think that he would fit their style pretty well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you know what? I just
yeah.
realized I made a mistake here. I shouldn't have
Oh,
said likely because
what?
I in my mind when I voted likely jump, I realized that Indy would going to the Indies would not be a jump.
It's a
So yeah,
lack of a going to the Indies is a lack of a jump.
yeah. So yeah. So then it ultimately comes on: is he going to go to AEW or New Japan or WWE? And I don't. Yeah. On second thought, I don't think he would do any of those. So I'd actually
Toss up it.
yeah. Let's go to toss up.
Yeah. And of course, so we've discussed, I suppose, a little bit of the possibility of New Japan there. AEW, I think that this is another talent like Speedball that I think that if and when they make Ring of Honor some kind of residency or more independent of a promotion and how it's like booked, scheduled on the calendar, I think that, but for the on screen to say it's AEW presents Ring of Honor wrestling, I think that's a great idea. But I think as far as actually having shows, it's good to have them you know on their own. And I think that Josh Alexander is somebody that would really prosper in that scenario of essentially Ring of Honor doing a schedule like TNA, but having the ability to go up to AEW far more easily and do big stuff with that. It's I think that somebody like him, somebody like Speedball, somebody like there are a few people that we're going to talk about in a little bit here when we get into our Japan portion of the podcast that I think that they would also do very well in a Ring of Honor kind of environment rather than the AEW touring environment. Not saying that they're not capable of being big touring stars. I just think that the environment of something that is like essentially TNA's schedule, but with the money and backing of a big company like AEW, is something that would be very interesting for these people, and I think that they would thrive in those environments. So all that to say, what do you think about the possibility of Josh Alexander in WWE though? I mean, the photo that I have right here is him with the NXT champion Ethan Page.
Yeah, I mean, it might. He might. Um, he's someone that I think that there's a lot of people in that performance center that would really like, and probably already
Yes.
really do like him.
Yeah.
So that I can't completely discount it.
Yeah.
Um,
Although, of course, we had to point out if that is the case, why is he not there yet?
that's that is well, I'll give a good answer.
Uh huh.
How old is he?
Too old. Maybe is the answer.
The answer is he's 37.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, he doesn't really fit the Riverdale casting call that they do there.
Yeah, so I don't think that's I think that's probably going to be working against him.
Yeah, and then you don't think that he would end up on main roster WWE essentially?
No, he's
Yeah.
definitely not at that level in terms of someone that they would skyrocket to the main roster.
Yeah. So essentially, what we're looking at is a toss up, I think, is what we're leaning towards here, of saying is that we're thinking it's a toss up of him ending up somewhere like AEW or New Japan.
Yep,
Yeah. And I think that's exactly how our committee voted, was to just put him in toss up for now.
that works for me.
Cool. I think it's time to get into Japan now. Uh,
All
first,
right.
first up is the smart bastard himself, who last week I believe I was saying that it seemed like it was moving in the direction that he was actually signed to New Japan, because I looked at all the cards that were coming up and he was being marketed as a New Japan star and not as from Noah, and he was still doing stuff with New Japan. Well, New Japan came out and said, yeah, he signed. So I don't think that we have much to talk about with the smart bastard. He's a confirmed jump to New Japan, right?
Yeah, I have nothing else to add. Yeah, I mean, they're not gonna lie about that. They
Yeah.
said he signed. He signed. So that's a no brainer to me. He is off the tier list as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, so we had him as a likely jump as of last week, which is our second highest tier of certainty of jump. So how would you score where we had Jake Lee at the last minutes there?
Um, say say that again.
How would you score our accuracy? How we followed the watch on Jake Lee?
And where would he have him before?
We had him as a likely jump.
Yeah, I think, and we've been kind of. I mean, I'll say this: you've been pretty firmly believing that he was going to jump for a while. I was a little bit more questioning it just because I thought we were looking at a Kato Kiyomiya situation.
Yeah.
Overall, the committee's been pretty on top of this, and I think that we get credit for this one.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for letting me have a victory lap if I want
Yes.
one.
Yes.
You got to experience it very well with Adam Copeland, and now I get to with Jake Lee. You know, very equal level of talent that everybody loves just as much.
Absolutely.
And somebody that I think more people love that's a Japanese talent is Mayu Iwatani. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's finally time for us to talk about her, right?
Yeah. Listen, we knew this was coming. This day was coming.
I knew this day would come. How about can you give the background about her as a big Hatman stan that you are? It seems like I think this is our Rossi Watch segment of the week, and I'm going to fill up my coffee. If you could talk about Mayu, I know everything about her, but maybe our listeners don't.
Sure. So Mayu Iwatani is one of the three pillars of early stardom, along with Kairi Sane, the former Kairi Hojo, and Io Shirai, the new Io Sky. Those three were the pillars of, you could argue Stardom's heyday in the late 2010s. And when they all left, she stayed in Stardom and has become the Stardom icon, so to speak. And during this time, Mayu Iwatani has really been the face of the company. There's been talk of people trying to get her to come to America. She worked Ring of Honor several times. She worked Madison Square Garden during that New Japan Ring of Honor show. There was talk that AEW tried to poach her, which is what some speculate that led to the bad blood between Tony Khan and Rossi Ogawa. And on top of that, we do know that Mayu and Rossi have a very, very close relationship, very similar to a father and a daughter. So she's
Mhm.
very loyal to Rossi. And then when Rossi was fired and started Marigold, the reports were that she was not happy at all. She was very upset. And the belief was that once her contract at Stardom was up, she was going to go to Marigold.
Yeah.
There's still talk that there are people in AEW and WWE that are trying to field offers for her.
Yes, that's the big news here, I think, right?
Yes. However, I still am of the opinion that she's probably going to be going to Marigold.
Mm.
I think that, you know, like I said, her loyalty to Rossi, I believe, is very, very strong. and I think that she's going. I think that's I'm going to leave it at that. I think she's going to be a Marigolder. And
Uh,
because of that, that is not one of the companies that we follow. So I voted to not put her on the tier list.
oh, wow. So, something that you always like talking about is money, right?
Yeah.
And she was, I think that she was asked about, if she was, and I don't think she would be offered as much as Okada was if she would go to America. She's like, well, yeah. But I don't think that she'll get that much of an offer, but it does sound like the American promotions are starting to knock on her door.
Yeah, but here's the thing: they've been knocking on their door for like a decade at
Yeah,
this point. So
but
I feel like, why now? Why now and not 5 years ago?
I don't know. I mean, like I think AEW is in a position right now that I know that they started off 5 years ago having essentially their women's division was just Joshi's. Um, but I think that right now they have actually um, they're giving a lot more time to the women to actually develop stories. And I think that it's a better environment now for somebody to come over from Japan and enter the women's division and actually have stories. Um, Whereas I think like even 2 years ago, I would say that that wouldn't be necessarily the best move. And then the WWE angle, of course, is that they have another daughter of Rossi there coming in, and Julia. So, of course, Marigold might, of course, just be a psyop by WWE. Um, so that's also a possible path there, is if she does end up in Marigold, maybe it's just the long-term plan is for her to, make the jump to WWE anyway.
I suppose. I guess I just figure like it's been so long. I don't know. I figure if she was going to go, she would have gone already. That's just
Gotcha.
my take. And I think she's gonna stay, and I think she's gonna be a part of Marigold.
I personally wouldn't also put much weight into some people were talking about the her saying about she's not going to compete in the 5-star Grand Prix anymore. I think that's more of just like in kayfabe, number one, but also two, like a recognition of like she's been there, done that, you know.
Yes.
So
Yeah, that's like Tanahashi saying he's not gonna do it, or um or Yuji Nagata.
yeah,
Granted,
yeah.
that was also more of like they're getting ready to retire type situation, but it is, as you said,
Well,
what else can they do? It's like they're almost obligated to protect them, and to a detriment to the booking. So I get it.
I mean, also though, of course, in Japan, Mayu is getting up there towards the retirement age that they expect for a woman.
Yeah, this is also fair.
um, so maybe that is another, point towards her leaving Japan, for that matter too. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, I think that she's kind of done everything that there is to do for her in Stardom. Um, so I don't know where I would put her on the tier list though. That's the thing. Um, I would say I would say that I think that she's likely staying at Stardom. Um, but I wouldn't go any higher than that at this point.
Yeah.
And you just think she shouldn't even be on the tier list.
I just I mean I would be fine having her on the tier list. It's just I just really firmly believe that it's like if it was gonna happen, it would happen a while ago, and I don't
Gotcha.
think I need a little bit more than just like oh, they're interested. Like WWE has been interested in her allegedly for a decade.
Yeah.
AEW, allegedly blew up their relationship with Rossi Ogawa over her.
Yeah.
So it's like, why is it any different now?
Well, it's because
That's my take.
I think the thing that's different now is that Rousey now kind of works with WWE.
Kind of. I
So
need to see a little bit more of the Marigold relationship before I think
yeah,
it's like I don't know that I'm ready to call it this giant feeder, because all I've seen so far is that they let Julia like finish out dates at this promotion, and they had like one match with Io.
yeah.
Like I want a little more.
I mean, hey, that's pretty much TNA. Um,
Yeah,
they're not sending their best TNA, are they?
no.
NXT, and it's also NXT that's sending people.
I mean, actually,
So hey,
WWE did send EO.
yeah,
That is
that's kind of
sending their
bigger.
best.
That's kind of
That
sending their
is
best. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So let's see how the committee went on this. Oh, ooh, that's spicier than I thought. They went with lean stay at Stardom.
Okay.
You think that's? I think that's a little bit hotter for than both of us, right?
Well, here's the thing, and this is why it's, and maybe this is something maybe we need to like rework and keep thinking about like as we evolve the tier list a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So if they stay in Stardom,
Yeah,
or if she goes to Marigold,
that's going down the tier list. Yeah.
yeah. So it could just be like, that's fair. I mean, they kind of see it like she's either going to go to Marigold or she's going to go to Stardom. Like those, or she's going to stay in Stardom. Those are,
Yeah, I mean, like for her, essentially, it's if she's going to America, that's a jump.
yes.
Yeah, and
So
one of our committee members here in chat has mentioned that he sees it as a very similar situation to Okada at the end of last year, where
maybe
people didn't think it was a thing at first, and then we started getting those little like breadcrumbs of hey, AEW and WWE are interested in having him.
the difference is I don't know that is anyone's throwing Okada level money at her. Like Okada, I feel like was a, he was getting so much money thrown at him. It was almost like,
Well, do you think relative scale for women, where I think that Mercedes is probably the biggest paid in the world right now. I I think relative scale then to whoever is next down from her in the AEW paradigm or in the WWE paradigm. Um, I think that, and also comparatively to what she's getting paid in Stardom, I think that it would be big money for Mayu's perspective.
maybe. I mean, I don't know that I can even necessarily speculate on that at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this: we know that Io, when she went to WWE, she took a pay cut,
Mm.
and I know that.
Well, that's also
And,
back when there was only one option to go to America, really, and also it was having to do NXT to start with.
right, and I guess that's the thing. It's like it would be nice if we kind of knew like what Julia's getting.
Yeah, this is speculation. I would guess that she's getting something like the Dragon Lee deal.
Okay,
That's my
so like a
feeling on it.
lower six figure.
Yeah, like that she's getting money that would be comparable enough to main roster because it
Barely
doesn't
six figure.
feel like she's going to stay in NXT for a long time. Like she will do some programs, but it feels like that the way that they brought her in was like this is a big deal person, you know?
Yeah.
So, it wouldn't surprise me if Julia's time in NXT is short-lived.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either.
Yeah. Especially if she's the only woman remaining healthy after she has all of her headbutt matches with people. But now it looks like she's changed it to a knee strike as her thing. So, um, anyway, that is that our Rossi Watch segment for the week. I mean, kind of. We got one more person left here with I think
She's
this
Rossi
week.
adjacent.
Rossi adjacent. It's Mina Shirakawa. Previously, we had her as a lean stay at Stardom. I don't think that there's been much new things going on with her. Well, I think one thing in particular is that she hasn't been on AEW TV other than like Rampage match since she was doing her little American residency, and she's gone back to Japan, right?
For now.
For now.
For now. And then let me just double check something because here's the thing with Mina. First of all, we know that AEW is known for having cycling people in and out. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So it's not like it's a situation where it's like, oh, she hasn't been on TV in 2 weeks, so that must mean she's gone. That's not the case typically at all with her. if I had to, I mean, and then it's not to mention they had her kind of watching that Tony Storm, uh, Mariah May match, so I feel like they're gonna set something up. But she is back in Japan. I mean, she just had a match in Stardom yesterday. I think it was
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah, it was like this weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, and she won. She won that match because that was the deal. So I my hunch is that she's sticking around in Stardom for now, but I feel like it's only a matter of time and possibly soon that she does make a jump to AEW.
Yeah.
I think that she's very popular. I
Hmm.
think maybe she, you know, she I think she wants to eventually become a star in America. So I will go. I'm going lean jump. So the lowest I can go where I'm saying a jump is likely.
Okay, so I am far more conservative about this than you are, I think. Because I think the fact that remind me, um at All Out there was supposed to be a Mariah May title celebration.
Yes, there was, and then the celebration did not happen because she said she did not want to have her celebration in Chicago.
Okay, so is it because somebody couldn't show up, or what? Like, it's just so bizarre to me because that was some people were speculating that maybe Mina would come out or have a video to interrupt it and be like, "Oh, you're our bad lady now. I hate you. I hate you. I've always hated you," or something like that. So it's kind of it's weird
It
to
did
me.
seem it did seem weird that it was like a straight up, false advertisement.
Which means to me that it wasn't supposed to be Mina then, because like they would have just had a video because they already knew that she was already going to be in Japan, right? So like it's not like they you know got surprised by Mina just suddenly deciding to go to Japan. They
Right.
said it after she was already in Japan.
Yeah, I mean they did set up they still set up that angle with with Queen Aminata, which it's fine. I like Queen Aminata, but it does feel like that's almost kind of like a fill-in because it's weird that you'd win the title and then you're transitioning straight to Queen Aminata unless they just want to give her like a really decisive win.
Well, I mean, like Queen Aminato seems to be doing a program with Serena Deeb, I would think.
Right. Listen, I don't know if you saw this segment, but Mariah May came out, said, "I'm not doing my celebration in Chicago because I hate Chicago, blah, blah, blah," while Sky Blue was there because Sky Blue was getting interviewed on crutches. And then she pushed Sky Blue over, and then Queen Aminata came out for the save.
So it's
So,
Sky Blue.
well, Sky Blue is potentially injured.
So it's not Mina. That's all I'm seeing with all this, right?
It's not Mina
Yeah,
now.
it's not Mina. So it was Sky Blue was the person.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
So
the
it's
surprise attached to it. So what I'm saying is, if you were going to have Mina come in to do something more, it would be with Mariah, and this would be the time, and then they not doing it. So that means to me, I think she likely is staying at Stardom.
It could be. I also, once again, though, I feel like we have some time.
Well, yeah, we have
Like,
time. Yeah, sure, but
it
like,
would, if especially if they're gonna do Mina later, like closer to the pay per view. I mean, maybe they're gonna wait till after Grand Slam.
maybe
We got
sure.
a couple weeks, so I'm willing. I'm gonna. I still think it's likely that she's going
So wait, which tier though are you saying?
or lean. I think I'm lean jump. I'm saying that Mina Shirakawa is lean jump.
Okay. Um, yeah, I'm saying likely stay, which is very far from you.
Yeah.
So let's see how the committee went with this. The committee has gone with it being a toss-up. So that's
Okay.
hey, it's in between the two of us.
That's good to hear.
That's nice of them. Um, let's see. Let's look through the chat. Oh, we have somebody saying that wrestling is fake and boring in chat.
Yes.
His name is
Yes. It is.
Curvin, which I don't think is a real name. So, congrats on you knowing that your name is fake and boring. Let's see if we have any hot takes for this week. Did you have any of your own to cover, Doug?
Well, I will say I don't know if this is hot, and I know you didn't really get to see all of All Out yet, but my take is that I would say All Out has been better than All In 2 years in a row.
I think that's very hot. I think that you
Okay.
you have to take your Chicago goggles off.
Yeah. So what other hot takes do we have?
Weekend afternoons are the best time for pay-per-views.
I think yeah, I'll be honest, I do like the afternoon pay-per-view, especially the Sunday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Sunday nights are rough because then you gotta get up for work the next day. I think, like, because I think it also as an American, I think people like those noon football games, and I think that that's they should build off that. I like that. Sunday should be like an early time.
Oh, I think one of our committee members, their reaction to you saying that All Out is better is that Brian Danielson and Swerve Strickland died. How dare you?
I'm a terrible person.
Yeah, they both lived after All In at least. You know, one of them didn't have a title, but they both were alive. Mercedes Willow 2, which is a double or nothing match, was very good, though I am of the opinion that it was only marginally better than Mercedes Britt, which is fiercely underrated. How do you rate that as a take?
I'll be honest. I feel like I need to go back and rewatch Mercedes Britt because I wasn't paying super close attention after a little while. I feel like I got to give it a fair shot again before I give that answer. Um,
So that sounds kind of like you think it's pretty warm of a take at the very least.
maybe. Once again, I feel like I don't have a good sense on
Yeah.
one half of this question. So I don't know that I want to give an answer. I will say this. I think that, but I will say this about the Willow match. I think that match was very good, but I think it was also Willow was very good. So
Yeah.
I think Mercedes has been inconsistent. We'll
I
just go with that.
I think that's hot because I think that since she left WWE, she's only had one bad match.
I think the All Out match was not great.
I think the All In match was not great. I liked the All Out match a lot.
The Cheetah one.
I'm also a Sheeta stan, so
Okay.
I think that they should have gotten more time because they had exactly the same amount of time that they did for the TV match, which seems silly, especially on a show that long. That they were not given enough any more time than they got on TV. That's my hot take.
Okay.
Um, let's see. Oh, I think this one you already agree with. AEW adopting the cash in your title match at any time stipulation for match contract sucks.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. Cold take.
Cold take.
Nice cold take for me because I have been banging this drum that this is first of all, I think it diminishes titles. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, some people have argued, oh, it's great for a heel cash in, and you could argue it's a nice little heel moment, but it weakens what the title means. Like when you do this,
Yeah.
like it's and then you got to build it back up again. It's there. Any positive is greatly outweighed by the negatives. Cash ins are bad, and on top of that, I think that let WWE just do those
I
because
think
I think AEW is at its best when it doesn't copy WWE.
I agree with the
Okay.
cash ins. I just don't like them. I think we have two more. Chest chops are boring, and if I never see another, I will be happy. I'm guessing
Hot.
this is about like the chop battle kind of
Oh, I
stuff.
know it. Yeah, I know what they're saying, and they're wrong. So hot. That is
I think they're right.
no. This is like Paris Hilton. That is so hot. So hot.
I think they're very right. I think that it is boring. I think that it's something that gets people that watched Ring of Honor in the aughts and New Japan in the tens gets them really happy, and nobody else cares because it looks
Well,
silly.
as someone that is what you just described
Oops. Oh,
for
sorry.
the most part, I would say yes. It does make me very happy.
Or people that
And
love '90s All Japan.
I love a good old chop battle. Listen, that's all I need. Like every single time, like they have like a Suzuki match or an Ishii match where they just chop each other the whole time. It's great. That's all I need.
Last one of the hot takes. CM Punk's feud with Drew McIntyre is legitimately damaging his reputation and legacy due to the toothlessness of its execution. Damaging
Man,
the legacy of CM Punk.
lukewarm take. I don't. No, I don't. I think. Listen, if there was anything that damaged his legacy, it's happened long before this.
Yeah, but what about the lore of the bracelet?
Nah, I don't think so.
Uh,
I do subscribe to the theory that this is all bad on purpose to see if he's gonna blow up and to kind of test him.
I think the whole bracelet thing is 100% not his idea because it is so dumb. Like it makes no sense. They've gone back on it one way and the other like 3 times. It's just dumb. It's so dumb. And I think that Tiger Driver 91 lore is better. Um,
I mean, yeah, I agree.
so yeah, let's just look at the tier list as it stands right now, and we can chat through that. And then I think we're pretty much done for this week's episode of WrestleWatch. Right now we have safe jumps from where they're currently at. We have Hikuleo being a safe jump from New Japan, Michael Oku being a safe jump from Rev Pro, and then WWE TNA relationship being a safely thing that's happening.
Yep. And then for likely jumps, we have Motor City Machine Guns. Machine Guns are a likely jump from the Indies. Lucha Brothers likely jump from AEW, and Bobby Lashley a likely jump from, I guess it'd be from WWE or independent status at this point.
Yeah. Ricky Starks we have as leaning jumping from AEW, Zilla Fatu, MVP, and Jordan Grace round out the lean jump category.
All right, and here are our toss-ups. I'll just read off the names. We have Speedball Mike Bailey, Mustafa Ali, Danhausen, Megan Bain, Alex Windsor, Josh Alexander, Mina Shirakawa, which, by the way, Mustafa Ali hanging outside the Now Arena on Saturday, just handing out stickers.
Yeah, not booked.
Not booked. Just
not invited.
Stickers.
Not invited. Just handing out
Yep.
stickers. That means that he should go down a few tiers, I think. I joked. I think that he was one of the riot police. Next tier
one.
are the lean stays. These are the people that we think that are going to they're leaning towards staying where they're currently at or staying independent. We have Tekla, Kevin Owens, Viva Van, Sheamus, Shelton Benjamin, Beth Phoenix, Joe Hendry, Ninja Mac, Shinsuke Nakamura, Dijak, The Hardys, Trevor Lee, and now Mayu Iwatani.
All right. And then for likely stay, we have Sami Zayn.
Just Sammy, baby. Just Sammy.
And then I'll do safe stay too.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
All right. For safe stay, we have Sari, Utami Hayashishita, Hook, Street Profits, El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr., Dustin Rhodes, El Hijo de Vikingo, Kazuhiko Nakajima, Shane McMahon, Thunder Rosa, Alex Wolf, Britt Baker, Becky Lynch, Bozilla, Saraya, the AEW leaving Warner Brothers, and then Giselle Shaw, newly added.
Yeah, so yeah, I think that things are pretty clean on the tier list right now. I feel happy about it. And yeah, thank you all for listening in to our podcast this week on this Monday. We will let you all know when the next week's episode is. We haven't determined which date of the week it will be, but it should be in the first half of the week.
Yep. So with that, I am Doug.
And I'm Ryan. Thank you all for listening to WrestleWatch, the only podcast where we discuss pro wrestling. Be sure to have us subscribed on YouTube, on your local podcast app. We have Twitter. We have Substack. Give us a like, give us